Today we have the honor of including Keith Serlin, very well-known chef in Michigan and Florida, who is going to make for us key lime pie. So here's Keith, and Keith is going to get started on this key lime pie right now.
Take it away, Keith. Thank you, David. My name is Keith Serlin. I am a professional chef, but before I was a chef, I was a lawyer for 45 years. After 40 years of practicing law, I enrolled at Schoolcraft College in Livonia, Michigan, and began my journey to learn how to be a professional chef. 2.5 years later, I graduated, and I formed a catering company. It is called The Golden Chef. And although I still practice law because I have a mortgage payment, I have a lot more fun cooking and baking than I do in the courtroom. That's my background. So today, I've been asked to demonstrate the preparation and the baking of a key lime pie. A key lime pie is something that everybody likes. I have never ever had a guest in my house who has turned down a piece of key lime pie. They're aromatic, they're tasty, you've got that sweet and you've got the sour, you've got all the combinations you need for every good food. So let's begin. So let's talk about the ingredients first. There are two main types of limes that we use for key lime pie, and I'll show them both to you. These are commonly referred to as Persian limes. Persian limes. As you can see, they're nice and green, and they're nice sized limes. The other lime that we use, which is less common, is actually the key lime. So if you're making key lime pie and you want to make the pie with the real key limes, these are the real key limes. As you can see, they are substantially smaller, much smaller than the Persian lime. I take these Persian limes and I cut them and I squeeze them, and I use a strainer because we don't want any seeds, no seeds. And we're going to want to use about 1/2 cup. Now before we cut the lime and before we squeeze it, we'll want to zest it. So zesting is very easy, but we have to be careful. Why? Because there's a white part underneath this oily skin, and it's very bitter. So we don't want to use that part. So we want to take our zester here and just do the surface. And we're going to want to use two of these limes, the zest from 2 limes. You'll see some recipes that call for a teaspoon or a tablespoon. I don't believe in that. Just take 2 limes, zest them, and you're done. You don't have to measure. So if you notice, I just used the skin, the green part. I left the white because we don't want any of that white part there. So that's critical because you don't want a bitter taste. You want a sour taste in your pie, but you don't want a bitter taste. Now let's talk about the pie crust. I make my key lime pies in a very traditional way, and that calls for a graham cracker crust. Now the only tidbit I have to make it not as traditional as most is that I add a little bit of ground cinnamon. I find that gives it just a little more flavor and makes it a little different and really enhances that crust. So what we need for the crust are several cheap and easy ingredients. We need a package of graham crackers. We need 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. We need some sugar to sweeten it up a little bit. And we also need some butter. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to melt the butter as I break up the graham crackers. Now there's several ways we can do this. To me, the easiest way and the most efficient way is to use a food processor. Because what we want is a very fine crumb. We don't want any pieces that stick out like a sore thumb. And I find by using a food processor, we get a nice uniform grain. So my preference is to take a package of these graham crackers and put them into a food processor, just like this. And we want to break them up a little bit too before they actually go in. Now, if you're like me and you want to make sure that the flavor is good, they taste good, they're not spoiled, you can always grab a piece and eat it. Okay? It never hurts, and the pie isn't going to miss it. So, when you melt that butter in the microwave, make sure you keep an eye on it, because I've had several explosions before. We don't want those. Okay, so it looks like we've got some good fine crumbs here. Let's add the sugar and the cinnamon. I've pre-measured the sugar, 2 tablespoons. I'm using a cane sugar today. You could use granulated, whatever you have, not powdered, but any kind of sugar you want. Let's take our cinnamon. We're going to put in 1/4 teaspoon. And now the last ingredient that we're going to add is the melted butter. We want to scrape all that goodness in here. And we'll want to scrape down the sides at least one time to make sure that every crumb has a little butter on it. All right, so let's talk about the different kinds of vessels that we can use when making our key lime pie. My preferred vessel is the standard 9-inch Pyrex pie plate. I find it very convenient, very easy to use, very easy to clean. This is my all-around favorite. If you don't have one of these and wanted to make a bigger pie, you could use a tart pan like this. This would work fine. It's a little bit bigger, and that's okay. Or you could use the old-fashioned aluminum kind, and that's just as good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this, we're going to scrape this crust. I don't know if anybody can smell it or not in here, but I can. And it looks like we've got a good consistency. It looks like this is going to form a very nice crust. We don't want to waste any. We want to get it all. So now that we've got our graham cracker mixture into the pie plate, we need to make sure that this gets pressed down so that it bakes correctly and so that it holds that delicious custard that we're going to be making in a few minutes. And I like to start in the middle and work to the outside because we want to form a ridge. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look beautiful because we're going to put that filling inside, so nobody's going to see this. Okay, so now we're ready to bake this crust. We're going to put it on a pan, and we're going to put this in the oven for 10 minutes at a preheated oven of 350 degrees. So we've had this pie crust in the oven for about 12 minutes. And take a look. And it is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now comes the fun part, the main preparation for making this key lime pie. The ingredients we're going to use today are 4 egg yolks, which means we have to separate the whites from the the yolks first. We're going to be using a full 14-ounce can of sweet condensed milk. And of course, the most important ingredient, a half a cup of lime juice. Now this was frozen. I guarantee you this is going to taste just as fresh as if we squeezed a lime today. The filling is the zest laying right here in this pie tin. That will make up our entire custard today. So first, let's start with the eggs. Eggshell. So what we're going to do is we're going to beat these 4 egg yolks. We're going to beat this, well, we did beat this for about 4 minutes, and the goal is to obtain a thicker egg yolk with a paler color to it. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but the yellow is more of a pale yellow, and it's just a little bit thicker than it was when we cracked the eggs and put them in the bowl. So now we're going to add our sweetened condensed milk to the thickened egg yolks. Now we're going to add our half cup of lime juice. And the zest from the lime. And now we're going to mix it all up. Okay, so custard filling. And we're going to pour it right in here. These flecks of green are beautiful. That's, of course, the zest. And that's why we don't want to get any of the white part or the pith from the lime. We want this to be a beautiful green flake color. We're going to pour it all in here. The filling inside the crust. I'm going to move it around a little bit to make sure it's even. And once again, we're going to do a tap, 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 just like being at the dentist, to make sure that it's nice and even, and that if there were any air bubbles, they're now gone. All right, so our oven is at 350 degrees. Once again, we're going to put it in the middle of the oven, middle of the shelf, and we're going to set the timer for 15 minutes. We're at the stage now where our custard has set. It doesn't have to set all the way because it continues to set when it's in the refrigerator. So we're going to take it out of the oven because we don't want to burn that beautiful crust. And once again, I wish that every one of you who is watching this video could smell this aroma right now. Okay, so as you can see, our custard is partially set. It's not moving anywhere. That's exactly how we want it. So before we can decorate this, we need to cool it down. While that pie is cooling down, let's make some whipped cream. Whipped cream is very easy to make. Just have to follow a few simple instructions. We're going to use a full cup of heavy cream, not half and half, not milk, not buttermilk, not skim milk. It's got to be heavy cream. I have pre-measured in this container 1 cup of heavy cream. When you're using heavy cream, you should always keep it super cold. It's better to put it in the freezer before you're going to start whipping, and it'll whip quicker and better. All right, so we have our heavy cream, 1 cup of heavy cream in a bowl. We are going to add 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. If you don't like it sweet, you can use 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. If you don't want it sweet at all, don't put it in at all. Me, I like things sweet, so I have a tendency to go on the sweeter side. And the other ingredient is going to be some good vanilla extract. And we're going to use about a tablespoon. Now, if you can find the clear vanilla extract, that's a better ingredient to use, because what happens with this vanilla, you can see it's a caramel, dark caramel color, and it has a tendency to discolor the whipped cream and turn it into a color that maybe we don't want to look at. It's not as appetizing. Whipped cream should be white, should be pure white. So here we go. We have some whipped cream that's been whipped to a stiff peak. And what we will do is we will put this into a pastry bag. There are different kinds of pastry bags that you can use. Today I brought a plastic one. It's a throwaway. Normally I don't use these, but they do come in handy. Okay, so now we're going to make this whipped cream drop to the bottom. Give it a little squeeze. Get the air out. And then we're going to put it in the refrigerator, because this has to be nice and cold when we pipe this onto the pie. I just pulled our key lime pie out of the refrigerator. It is semi-cool now, which will allow us to do our piping. So as far as the whipped cream, you can do this several different ways. You can just take the whipped cream and dollop it on here, and that's fine if you want to do that. I prefer to use a piping method and pipe some rosettes around the perimeter. I'm using a star tube here. Let's do some piping. Let's talk about some garnishments for this beautiful pie that we have here. There's a couple of different ways we can go. A traditional method would be to take some zest, which I made and froze ahead of time, and sprinkle just a little bit on each rosette, like this. Now we don't want to put too much on here for the reason that it's not a real flavorful item. It can be bitter sometimes. Now this would be your classic, and I mean your classic key lime pie, just like that. What I like to do is add several other elements to this pie. And those elements are chocolate mini chips, which we just spread randomly on top of the custard. You can put a lot, you can put just a few. And the other thing I like to do is I like to take a kiwi. Take this kiwi and I peel it, It's going to look like this after it's peeled. I'm going to cut it in half. And then we'll take just a few pieces and put them in the inside of the perimeter here. Sometimes we need to cut just a little bit to make it fit. And there we are. Okay, who's hungry? This is the finished product.
So this has been an absolutely extraordinary afternoon cooking with Chef Keith, and this pie looks amazing. We hope we have a chance to enjoy it for dinner after dinner tonight. And thank you, Keith, for an amazing job. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. David was...
There's a special sauce that goes with this, and we're going to share that with you a little later.
David, it was my pleasure to do this afternoon. I appreciate you giving me this invitation and this opportunity to make a demonstration video. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's part of my journey as being a chef, and I hope that I can do it again.
We're going to do it again, so stay tuned for our next special recipe that Chef Keith is going to make, and stand by for more.